I asked you a simple question, Micah, the lawyer said, his voice dripping with exaggerated patience. Can you answer it, or not? Micah stared at the polished wood of the witness stand, his fingers tapping a quiet rhythm against the edge. He didn't look up. The courtroom was too loud, too bright, too full of shifting eyes and breath held too long. He began, but the words stuck. Let the record show, the lawyer cut in, turning to the judge with a smirk, that the witness is non-responsive. No, Micah said again, his voice thinner now, barely reaching the microphone. He blinked rapidly. His mother, seated behind him, clenched her fists in her lap. Judge Reynolds narrowed her eyes. Let the boy speak, Mr. Drake. You've made your point. Drake smiled politely. Of course, Your Honor. I'm only trying to establish clarity for the jury. It's hard to interpret silence. Micah's hands stilled. He raised his head, slowly. His eyes, pale and steady, finally met Drake's. Do you want the truth, or do you want me to be wrong? A murmur swept through the courtroom. Drake's jaw twitched. He stepped back. Micah took a breath like he'd been underwater. You asked if I saw the man outside the store that night. He paused. Yes, I saw him. Drake recovered. And yet, you didn't say anything until 2 days later. Isn't that odd? Not for me, Micah said. Sometimes it takes time for my brain to put things in order. But when I saw the footage, it matched what I saw exactly. Drake chuckled, then turned to the jury. We're trusting the memory of a 16-year-old autistic boy who admits he gets confused. Micah tilted his head. You're trusting a man who didn't know his own son was in trouble. A silence deeper than any objection followed. Drake froze. What did you say? He asked, barely above a whisper. Micah looked down again, his voice quiet but firm. I said, your son. He was there, that night. And he's not okay. Behind the prosecution table, a woman gasped. Someone dropped a pen. And suddenly, everything felt very, very real. Drake's hands trembled as he fumbled with the cap of his water bottle. He hadn't blinked since Micah uttered those words. My son? He echoed, voice hoarse. Judge Reynolds leaned forward. Mr. Drake, do you need a recess? He shook his head quickly. No, Your Honor, I'm fine. Micah's eyes had returned to the table in front of him, his tapping resuming. 3 beats. Pause. Repeat. The courtroom air felt different now, no longer a battle of facts, but something deeply personal unraveling in real time. Drake turned toward the gallery. His ex-wife Vanessa sat 3 rows back. She looked pale, her eyes wide. Their son, Caleb, wasn't there. He never came to court. Too angry, too distracted, always busy. Drake faced the stand again. Micah, he said carefully, what exactly did you see that night? Micah nodded slowly, as if he had to prepare every word like a fragile piece of glass. There was a man outside the store. He was yelling. I saw him hit the trash can, then a car pulled up fast. A boy got out. What did the boy look like? He was tall, pale, hoodie with red strings. Micah paused. Left shoelace untied. The courtroom seemed to lean in. Drake's mouth dried. Caleb wore that hoodie. He left the house that night in it. It was supposed to be at his mom's in the laundry, but Drake had seen it yesterday, crumpled in the back seat of Caleb's car. Micah added, he was trying to help the man, not fight him. Help him how? He kept saying, you don't have to do this, over and over. Then he tried to pull him away from the store door. Micah's fingers curled inward, but the man shoved him. Drake's throat closed. Micah whispered, your son didn't hurt anyone, he tried to stop it. The gallery erupted in hushed gasps and shifting chairs. Judge Reynolds banged her gavel once. Order. Drake stepped back, rattled. He had been so sure this was another dead-end testimony, just a kid his defense had tossed onto the stand to muddy things. But Micah had seen something no one else had. And maybe, just maybe, he'd seen the one thing Drake had refused to look at, the truth about his own son. His voice cracked as he spoke. Micah, would you be willing to describe what you saw in more detail, Matt, for the record? Micah nodded once. Only if you stop pretending I'm not paying attention. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the bailiff wheeled in a monitor. Drake stood rigid beside the prosecution table, arms crossed tightly, eyes flicking between the screen and Micah. He still couldn't decide if this boy was a gift or a threat. "Proceed," Judge Reynolds said. Micah sat straighter, his voice steadier now. "Can you play the video from the security camera? The one from the liquor store entrance?" The defense attorney, Ms. Kerr, young, sharp-eyed, nodded and pressed play. Grainy footage flickered to life. Micah leaned forward. "Pause at 7:43. The frame stopped. A man stood facing the store, fists clenched. His jacket was half-zipped and his movements jerky. Off to the side, a blurred figure exited a car. "That's the boy," Micah said softly. "He's trying to talk to him." Kerr stepped closer to the screen. "Your Honor, we believe this figure is Caleb Drake, age 16, son of the prosecutor." A wave of murmurs rippled through the courtroom again. Judge Reynolds looked directly at Drake. "Mr. Drake, do you wish to recuse yourself?" He didn't answer right away, then quietly, "No, I'll see this through." Micah spoke again. "Go to 7:44, 12 seconds. The footage rolled. The boy reached out, grabbing the man's arm. The man jerked away and shoved the boy hard into the wall. The boy didn't retaliate. He ducked, covering his head. Then he ran. "That's when the man broke the window," Micah said, "and went inside." Kerr froze the frame. "There's no evidence Caleb followed him in, no fingerprints, no trace." But the prosecution continued to suggest he was involved. Micah turned toward Drake, speaking not with anger but clarity. "Your son was scared, not guilty." Drake's heart pounded. In the silence, he heard every lie he'd told himself for months. Caleb was just rebellious, just lazy, just difficult. But the truth was far simpler. He hadn't been listening. "Why didn't you say something sooner, Micah?" he asked, his voice thin. Micah looked down. "I don't like talking in rooms like this. People don't wait long enough for me to find the right words." Drake felt it then. Shame, deep and unfamiliar. Not for his son, for himself. Judge Reynolds leaned back. "This changes the trajectory of the case." And as the courtroom buzzed with new possibilities, Micah simply returned to his quiet rhythm. Tap, tap, pause, never realizing how deeply he'd shifted the ground beneath them all. Drake sat alone in the courthouse stairwell, elbows on knees staring at the scuffed floor tiles. Voices echoed distantly from above. Court officers, attorneys, the clatter of evidence boxes being moved. But he heard none of it. His son had been trying to do the right thing, and he, a man who'd built his career on dissecting facts and delivering justice, had never asked Caleb what really happened. The door creaked open. It was Vanessa. "I thought you'd be here," she said, voice low. Drake didn't look up. "You saw the video?" She nodded. "I've been trying to tell you, David. He's not perfect, but he's not a criminal. You just wouldn't listen." "I thought I was protecting him," he murmured. "No, you were protecting yourself. From the idea that maybe you don't know your own kid anymore." That hit harder than any cross-examination. He exhaled shakily. "He hasn't spoken to me in weeks. Because you treated him like a suspect, not a son." There was a pause. Drake rubbed his hands together, staring at his wedding ring, still on, even years after the divorce. "Micah, that kid, he saw something no one else did." Vanessa sat beside him. "He felt something no one else did. That's what scares you, isn't it?" "That he noticed what you missed." Drake didn't answer. "Caleb called me that night," she added. Crying, he said he tried to stop the guy, but he panicked when the police showed up. He thought no one would believe him. Drake swallowed hard. "Because of me." Vanessa looked at him. "He still wants you to believe him. He just stopped trying." Upstairs, the court resumed without him. But down here, something more important was unraveling. He stood slowly. "I need to talk to him. He's at your apartment. Said he didn't want to face court today." Drake nodded, then paused. "Do you think he'll even open the door?" "I don't know," she said. "But if you want to be his father again, knock." He met her eyes. The bitterness was still there, but softer now. And maybe that was enough. Drake turned toward the exit. His case had just collapsed, but something deeper was finally beginning. One conversation long overdue. Outside, the cold air hit his face like a reset. He pulled out his phone and called the only person who really mattered right now. It rang once, twice, then, "Yeah?" Drake closed his eyes. "Caleb, we need to talk. And this time I swear I'll listen." Drake's fingers hovered just above the doorbell, hesitating. The hallway smelled like old carpet cleaner and someone's microwave dinner. The hum of a TV buzzed faintly through the walls. Ordinary noises, yet his heart pounded like he was walking into a courtroom with no notes, no prep, no plan. He finally pressed the bell. Footsteps approached. Then silence. He imagined Caleb on the other side, maybe watching him through the peephole, deciding whether it was worth it. The lock clicked. The door cracked open. Caleb stood there, hoodie on, headphones slung around his neck. His eyes were rimmed red, not from anger, not from guilt, from exhaustion. "What do you want?" he asked. Drake swallowed. "To hear your side." Without interrupting, Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Since when?" Drake looked down. "Since a kid on the spectrum reminded me what paying attention really means." Caleb didn't smile, but he stepped aside. Drake entered slowly, taking in the mess, dishes in the sink, books on the couch, clothes tossed over a chair. It wasn't chaos, just someone surviving. They sat. "I saw the footage," Drake said. "Micah." He remembered things I didn't even know I'd forgotten how to see. Caleb picked at a loose thread on his jeans. "I told you I was trying to stop him." "I know," Drake said quietly, "and I didn't believe you. I went after the case like it was just another name on a file. You made me feel like I was guilty just for being there." Drake looked at him, really looked. "I was scared of what it would mean if you were involved. I buried you under my own fear." Caleb's lip trembled for a second. Then he blinked it away. "Micah said I wasn't guilty." "He was right," Drake said. "You were brave, and I didn't see it." A pause. Then Caleb asked, barely audible, "Am I still your son?" Drake leaned forward. "You never stopped being. I just forgot how to show it." Caleb's shoulders relaxed a little. The silence stretched, this time not heavy, but open. Drake reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is a formal statement. I'm stepping off the case. I already filed it with the court." Caleb stared at it. "You're giving it up?" "No," Drake said. "I'm giving you back your father." Caleb didn't say anything, but he didn't need to. For the first time in months, Drake felt like he was finally in the right room. Micah sat cross-legged on the carpeted floor of the small-town library, his back resting against the non-fiction section. It was quiet here, comfortably quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't press in or make demands, just breathing space. He ran his fingers along the edge of a book about city architecture, letting the texture soothe him. Rhythms mattered, routines mattered. But lately, everything had been different. Ms. Kerr, the defense attorney, had texted his mom earlier that day. "Tell Micah the judge is calling for a review of Caleb's charges." She cited Micah's testimony directly. His mom cried when she read it aloud. He didn't cry. He just blinked a few times and nodded. He wasn't sure what to feel, only that he'd said the truth and someone had heard it. That had to be enough. "Hey," a soft voice said. Micah looked up. It was Emma, his old classmate from 9th grade. She held a book close to her chest, awkward but genuine. "I saw you on the news," she said. Micah tensed. He didn't like being on screens. He didn't like the way people stared, especially when they didn't understand. "I think what you did was brave," she added quickly. He looked at her hands. She was fidgeting with the corner of the book cover, her nails chipped. Nervous. That made two of them. "Everyone kept talking about how you're different," she continued. "But I remember in class when we did that project on weather patterns, you were the only one who knew what a lenticular cloud was." Micah looked at her face. She wasn't mocking him. She remembered. "That was a good day," he said quietly. Yeah, Emma replied. It really was. They sat in silence for a minute, both holding books neither of them opened. Then Emma said, My little brother's kind of like you. Not the same, but kind of. He doesn't talk a lot unless it's about dinosaurs. Micah smiled faintly. Dinosaurs are a good place to start. She smiled too, and something softened between them. The librarian called closing time. Emma stood adjusting her backpack. See you around? Micah nodded. Probably. As she walked away, Micah ran his fingers once more over the edge of the book, then stood. Maybe being seen wasn't so terrible. Maybe words could do more than he thought, when people actually listened. The courtroom felt different this time, not just because the cameras were gone, or because Drake now sat silently in the gallery, a civilian rather than the lead prosecutor. It was different because no one was looking at Micah like a mistake waiting to happen. They were listening. Judge Reynolds adjusted her glasses, her voice calm but firm. Due to new evidence and witness clarity, this court finds insufficient grounds to proceed with formal charges against Caleb Drake. All accusations are hereby dismissed. A soft exhale rippled through the room. Caleb didn't smile. He just let out a breath he'd been holding for months. His mom squeezed his hand, and behind them, Drake closed his eyes, head bowed, like he was praying or apologizing, or maybe both. Micah sat in the back row this time, away from the spotlight. He didn't need to be front and center, his job was done, but Judge Reynolds looked straight at him as she continued. This case reminded us all of something we often forget in this courtroom, that truth doesn't always arrive in the format we expect. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it takes time, and sometimes it speaks in rhythms we're not used to hearing. Micah blinked. She was talking about him. Mr. Bennett, she added, your testimony helped this court do what it's meant to do. Thank you. His mother put her hand gently on his arm but didn't speak. She didn't need to. After court adjourned, Caleb hesitated at the exit. Then he turned, walking back down the aisle, stopping in front of Micah. For a second, neither said anything. Then Caleb cleared his throat. I know you probably hate talking, so I won't make this long. Micah waited. I don't think I've ever had someone stand up for me like that. Not even people who were supposed to. Micah tilted his head. You didn't look dangerous. You looked scared. Caleb nodded. I was. They stood in silence, strangers who somehow weren't anymore. Thank you, Caleb said. Micah looked down, then up again. You're welcome. Caleb extended a fist, hesitantly. Micah stared at it. Then gently, awkwardly returned the gesture. As Caleb turned to leave, Micah felt a calm settle over him. Not pride, not victory, just peace. Sometimes the world moved too fast, too loud, too unpredictably, but today it had finally paused long enough for him to be heard. 1 week later, Micah sat on the weathered bench near the duck pond, just outside the courthouse. The autumn breeze rustled the amber leaves, and the late afternoon sun cast soft gold over everything. It was one of his favorite spots, quiet, predictable, alive in ways that didn't overwhelm. He opened his notebook and began sketching the scene. Not the ducks or trees, but the people, how they moved, where they looked, what they didn't say out loud. He'd learned to see those things, always had. People just noticed it now. A shadow fell over his page. He looked up. Drake stood there, a coffee in each hand, one extended awkwardly. Your mom said you like decaf. No milk, just sugar. Micah eyed the cup, then took it without a word. Drake sat beside him, not too close. I didn't want to bother you. You didn't, Micah said. They sipped in silence for a while. Ducks floated across the pond. Somewhere nearby, a car alarm chirped and then went quiet again. I wanted to thank you, Drake said, not just for what you said in court, but for what it made me see outside of it. Micah didn't look at him. He didn't need to. You didn't hear people before. No, Drake admitted. I heard arguments, positions, evidence, but not people. Micah paused his sketching. You heard me when I said your son was trying to help. Drake nodded slowly. That was the first time in years someone talked about Caleb and used the word help. Micah glanced at him, measuring something. Do you believe him now? I do. And I believe you. Another moment passed. Micah returned to his drawing. Then he said, I don't always speak fast. But I always notice. Drake looked at the notebook. I can see that. They finished their coffees as the sun dipped behind the courthouse. As Drake stood to leave, he hesitated. If you ever want an internship, legal aid maybe, just say the word. Micah raised an eyebrow. Even if I correct you when you're wrong? Especially then, Drake said, half smiling. Micah didn't answer. But when Drake walked away, he turned a new page in his notebook and began sketching something different. A courtroom, a bench, a boy standing tall, not loud, not fast, but unshakably clear. Sometimes, the right words come slowly, but when they do, they can save everything.